Braindead. Braindead, braindead, braindead. Brain dead. The film I'm reviewing today is called Braindead, not bad taste. Anybody who watched my Meet the Feebles review will see that I constantly, at least 5 or 6 times, referred to this film as bad taste throughout the whole review. I know it's not called Bad Taste. Bad Taste is Peter Jackson's first film. Today I'm reviewing his third film, Braindead. Steven Sinclair does not have a writing credit on the film Bad Taste. He shares a co-screenwriter credit on The Two Towers, Meet the Feebles, and this film that I'm reviewing today, can't even find it, Braindead. Hello YouTubers, welcome to Big Buddha is Watching. I'm Big Buddha. Today I'm reviewing Citizen Kane. No, I'm not. I'm reviewing Peter Jackson's Braindead. I guess this is his third film in his Bad Taste trilogy. His first 3 features were Bad Taste schlock fests. But his first film was called Bad Taste. This one isn't. It's called Braindead, and this is the culmination of that trilogy. Arguably, probably the best known of his early films. Certainly, word of interest in his films was sparked after The Lord of the Rings, and a lot of people went back to revisit his earlier work, and this one often gets cited. Also, you know, people who just devour. I mean, horror movies have a really rabid fan base, and people really devoured horror movies, especially in the old video rental days. People would just hoover up horror movies, and this is one for anyone who did that back then. This is definitely one that everyone saw back then, and was a real sort of out of the norm movie. You'd be forgiven for thinking, just looking at the box, that this is your bog standard conventional horror movie, but it's so much more than that. I think it surprised everyone with its humour, and along with the Evil Dead trilogy at the time, it really set a precedent for OTT black comedy horror movies with a real hell bent on schlock value and gore value and humour, and just fun over scares particularly. The Evil Dead films, they're an interesting comparison because everybody sort of cites those films as being the staples of 80s horror, and you know, just 80s schlocky good time movie watching. And you know, don't get me wrong, I mean, I love those movies, especially the second one, Evil Dead 2, and of course I have a play. Well, I mean, the first one's a great horror movie, and the third one, I mean, it has its flaws, obviously, but it's any film with those lines in it, you know, "Hail to the King, baby," it's going to have a special place in my heart. But I mean, for me, when it comes to that sort of genre of movie, the comedy horror movies, it's Braindead all the way, and that really it owes a large part to the talent behind the camera. If you're going to debate with me who's the better director, Peter Jackson or Sam Raimi, well, I mean, ask yourself this question. I mean, which is the better movie trilogy, The Lord of the Rings or the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies? I'll leave it at that. So yeah, Brain Dead or Dead Alive for any American viewers watching. I believe it was called Dead Alive in the States because there is a 1990 horror movie, Brain Dead, of the same name. So I'm guessing why they changed that name. Then that's how it's still known over there to this day. Um, I think there was also a mini series or a TV series, a political satire show that used the name Brain Dead as well. So I'm guessing it's still not known as that over there. So sorry to confuse any US or Canadian watchers, but I am talking about Dead Alive, Peter Jackson's Dead Alive when I refer to Brain Dead. Or if I refer to it as bad taste, I mean Dead Alive. So this film came out in 1992, 3 years after Meet the Feebles, and I guess I'm right in saying it was his reviewed film, best received film to date that he'd made. It's certainly the most accomplished, and I think it's the the most competently put together, certainly in terms of production values and in terms of story as well. I think the story of this one for a film that has a kind of silly veneer to it, it is actually a maturely structured movie. And there's a real attempt there to tell a compelling story. It is essentially a love story with kind of Oedipal overtones at heart. The film starts on Skull Island in 1957. Yes, the Skull Island from King Kong. So you can see straight away. I mean, the roots of Jackson wanting to do a King Kong movie, where he was planting them in there very early on. By setting the early part of this film in Skull Island. Interestingly enough, he shot the Skull Island section in. Let me just check the place. In the Patangirua Pinnacles. Sorry if I've mispronounced that. It's the same location he used for the Paths of the Dead sequence in the Return of the King, the Lord of the Rings, the Return of the King. So you'll recognise it from then. But it's supposed to be set on Skull Island, and you get these explorers who capture this little creature called a rat monkey, a Sumatran rat monkey. Interesting enough, in his King Kong remake, you can see in the cargo ship a little reference on one of the boxes, one of the crates on the ship. It says contains Sumatran rat monkey. Don't get too close. That's a little nod to Braindead there. So I guess this technically takes place in the same universe as his 2005 King Kong remake. So these explorers, they capture this rat monkey. One of them gets scratched by it and ends up having to have both his arms chopped off because he's been scratched by it by the natives, but then he finds one of his heads, so it ends with him being decapitated. You cut to black and play the opening credits. So the tone is set there. I think you'll get within the first 2 minutes of this film what the tone and what kind of movie it is, and whether it's for you or not. The rat monkey is taken back to New Zealand and put in a zoo, and you get the main character Lionel. He takes his mother to the zoo. He's kind of a sort of henpecked mummy's boy. The actor who plays him is a guy called Oh, not being quick on the draw with the old Wikipedia today. Timothy Balm, he plays Lionel Cosgrove in the film. He was 25 when he made the film, but I guess I think he's supposed to be playing someone in his late teens. It's never explicitly stated how old he is, but he is a kind of repressed, henpecked mummy's boy. He takes his mother to the zoo where she gets bitten by the rat monkey, and then you get this horrible scene where the mother stamps on the head of the rat monkey. You get some shots in there that are this is pre CGI creatures. Really, it's 1992, so you get stop motion effects on the rat monkey as it moves, which I mean, modern audiences, whenever they see stop motion now, the response always is, "Oh, that looks terrible." But I think anybody who was doing stop motion around this time would, when you see that now, it's obvious that it's not meant to look slick. It's a tribute to Ray Harryhausen. Jackson's obviously a massive fan of Ray Harryhausen, Sinbad, Jason and the Argonauts, and of course I know Ray Harryhausen didn't do the original King Kong, but was very much influenced. I think Ray Harryhausen's career sort of was spurred on by wanting to emulate the creature effects work that he saw in the original King Kong with the stop motion effects, and so I've always taken the effect of the rat monkey in this film as a tribute to Ray Harryhausen, rather than being something that's meant to look like this great technical achievement of creature animatronics. So anyway, the mother gets bitten by the rat monkey, and effectively she turns into a zombie, and Lionel takes her home. She dies and starts biting everyone, and pretty soon everybody in the film is a zombie. That's the basic plot. At the same time, Lionel falls in love with the girl who works in the local shop called Paquita, who's his Hispanic love interest, played by Diana Penalva. And so you get this. As well as it being a wacky comedy zombie movie, you also get this quite tender centre. This love story, which works quite well, so juxtaposing the tones. So, it never gets. I think if it had all been schlock horror, it would have been grating in the end. It's nice to have these beats of almost romantic comedy beats throughout the film to juxtapose it as well. I'm guessing again. He was writing, as I said, he co-wrote this with Stephen Sinclair and with his wife Fran Walsh, and I'm guessing she's always tried to sort of crowbar these more mature elements into his films and his screenplays over the years. So it's not all sort of fanboy pop culture stuff, I guess you'd say. I mean, let's talk about some of the elements I like in these films. Like I say, I like the look of the rat monkey. But I mean, what you really come to this film for are the gross out moments, and they happen in spades. I mean, very early on, as the mum's turning and becoming more and more zombified, you get what is essentially what this film is about, which is Lionel struggling to cover up the fact that his mum's turning into a zombie. So the neighbours come round for dinner, and mum's there half zombified, eating dinner, steak and beans, and then they bring out the custard, and her ear drops off and falls into the custard, and then she eats it. And also she's got this open pussy wound on her hand which squirts out into the neighbour's custard, and he doesn't notice and eats it. Horrible stuff. And you eventually, as he's trying to engage with Paquita, his mum follows him to the shop, and she gets knocked down by a car, so everyone thinks she's dead. So you get a funeral scene, and this is where Jackson's cameo comes in as an undertaker. So the mum ends up getting buried, but then at night Lionel goes and tries to dig her up, because he knows that she's still animated, and he knows she can still cause havoc. I think at this point she's already killed and zombified her nurse, and so he's got her chained up in the basement, and he's giving her sedatives to keep her under sedation, and so he goes to dig her up, and this is where you get one of my favourite scenes in the film, the I kick ass for the Lord scene. Basically, some 50s greasers turn up and say, what are you doing, Lionel? Are you one of those pervs? He's trying to dig up the grave. Mum's arm comes up out of the grave, grabs the guy by the balls as he's pissing on the grave. She comes out and kills them all. And typical. If you've seen Bad Taste, you know what to expect with the blood squibs and everything. Blood flies everywhere. Little latex rib cages going all over the place, and then the vicar turns up, and he's like, "What's going on here?" One of my favourite lines in the movies ever. "I kick ass for the Lord," and you get a kung fu sequence between the zombies and the vicar as he's beating him up. Then the vicar gets bitten. I think one of the heads gets decapitated, lands on his shoulder, and he gets bitten, so he's a zombie. Then Lionel's got them all down in the basement, and he's trying to sedate them all, but they're all being unruly. He's trying to feed them all, trying to keep home, making life normal. And things get really, really bizarre and weird. The vicar character, he then starts having sex with the nurse character. She bites his lip off. His uncle Les, like a really sleazy sleazeball character, turns up because once he got news that the mum was dead, that he knows that Lionel's in line for a big inheritance and he wants a piece of it. So he turns up whilst the zombies are humping and thinks he's found his dad's old stag movies, as he calls them. The nurse zombie, she gets pregnant, and they have a little baby zombie. Yes, really, there's a little baby zombie. Lionel has to take it to the park in a baby carriage with barbed wire across it, and then the little baby zombie. That's the little baby zombie there. He's adorable. He's so sweet. They get a little. I don't know if it's a little actor or a child, but they put somebody in a suit with a rubber head on, and he's walking around all over the place, terrorizing all the other kids, and Lionel's having to wrestle with him and knock him to the ground, and the other mothers are looking on appalled. Yeah, and so towards the end of this, so you get all these really really funny scenes and really sort of good time gross out humour scenes. And that's all in the first hour of the film, and then the final half hour of the film really hammers home, what I love about Jackson, and his directing style. It's really in the third act of a lot of his films where Jackson comes into his own, because he really goes balls to the wall. Whereas a lot of movie climaxes sort of wrap themselves up within 10 minutes or 20 minutes. You usually get a good half hour, 40 minutes with his movie climaxes. His climaxes usually take place. His climaxes. That's what you don't want to see. The denouement of his films usually take place over 30 or 40 minutes screen running time. But unlike a lot of other films that have that, say the Transformers movies, where it's, or even some Marvel movies where it's, you just, the story's over, those movies, and they just want to exhaust you out with visuals and whiz pop action. Jackson structures his screenplays a lot better, in that where the story's still going on through the denouement, so you get all these plot strands that wind up being resolved through the action, and so it's not all sort of visual, visceral filmmaking. There is a point to everything that's going on the screen. It's winding up the plot points. The denouement of this film takes place at Lionel's. His Uncle Les comes round, and he tells he wants Lionel out. He discovers the bodies under the ground in the cellar, and he says, so he blackmails him. He says, I want this house, you get out, or I tell the cops. Paquita comes round. She discovers the bodies. She finds out this is why Lionel's being distant, and she tells him that she needs to destroy them all and bury them. So he injects them all with poison and buries them under the cellar floor. But then he finds out that it's not poison, it's some sort of animal stimulant. So of course the zombies all leap out, and they're even more ferocious than before. But they leap out whilst Uncle Les is having a party upstairs. So they break out of the basement cellar and basically run havoc through the house. Now everybody at the party's a zombie, and I'm guessing it was a soundstage or a set they filmed this on, because the gallons of blood that flows in this final section of the film is well, it actually was unprecedented at the time. I think apparently, if you watch the commentary on Reanimator, the director of the film, I think his name is Stuart Gordon. He says that at the time he made Reanimator, he held the world record for the largest amount of blood ever used on a single shoot. He used 500 gallons of blood on this shoot. Apparently, this was trounced 7 years later by Jackson, who used 2,000 gallons of blood in the making of this film, and and boy, can you see it. What's interesting about Braindead is it's kind of a reversal of the zombie movie conventions. The Night of the Living Dead scenario always dictated that the zombies were outside the building and the human inhabitants were holed up on the inside, trying to fend off the zombies. In here, it's reversed. The zombies are on the inside of the building, but the human characters want to keep them on the inside of the building to save face. They don't want the rest of the world knowing, and it's not through concern for the rest of society. It is almost a what will the neighbours think situation. So so all hell breaks loose at the party. All the zombies get out, and you get some really really morbid shots. One guy gets his skin pulled off over his head, so he's just a bloody skull. One woman gets a light bulb through the back of the neck, so her head starts glowing. One Nabokov paedophile apologist intellectual character, he ends up just the head on the floor, but he's being decapitated there, so he can't talk. Uncle Les, he says he's read the comics, he knows how to destroy them, so he goes at them all. But he gets his comeuppance in the end, obviously. One of the zombies gets his intestinal tract pulled out through his body, and then the intestinal tract comes alive, and that becomes a creature in itself that's following him all over the house. Lionel gets holed up in the attic at one point, and that's where you get the denouement of the mother storyline, where he finds the corpse of the rotting corpse of his father up there, and he gets a flashback from childhood where he I've got into the habit of spoiling these films, but I won't spoil it too much. But there is a resolution to the mother-son storyline. Of course, my other favourite scene in the film is, as well as the graveyard scene, is when Lionel gets thrown out of the house at one point. I believe by Uncle Les. But then he comes back in with the lawnmower, and he gets his hero line, "Party's over," and that's so you get the full arc of his story. This is really a coming of age story for Lionel. He learns to be the man and get the girl, and I guess this is where the 2,000 gallons of blood come in, because he then proceeds to lawnmower every single zombie in the room. And there you go. That's where the 2,000 gallons of blood went. And also while this is going on, Paquita's in the kitchen feeding body parts into the blender, and then you think it's all over, but it's never all over in a Jackson movie. If he can wring a little more action out of this a sequence, he can do so. Then the mother comes back to life, but she's had way too many stimulants, and she's this awful huge monster by this point, but with big saggy boobs and a big saggy bum on her, because she's an old woman. The house sets on fire because they use the gas to burn some of the zombies. So the house is burning to the ground at this time. Him and Paquita run up onto the roof, and you get the denouement between Lionel and his new love and mother. So yeah, there you go. That's Braindead. If you see my previous two reviews, you'll know that I love this. I mean, Bad Taste will always be my favourite. Just because, like I say, that was the first I saw, so that really blew me away with how much I enjoyed it, and how much I enjoyed it despite itself. In a funny sort of way, it's like, wow, this that there was a film that I found probably more exhilarating than most action movies that I'd seen up to that time. But but literally made in someone's backyard. Well, not literally, but almost. The bargain basement quality of it, I loved. But I mean, this is a close second. But I know it is technically a better film. I mean, filmmakers do improve on a technical level with each film they made, just because they learn the tricks of the trade more. But it is also a more mature effort, because there is an attempt to tell a story there, and quite an engaging story as well. Lionel and Paquita, they do have chemistry together. The actors, they are a very engaging couple, and the story is engaging. So that's one of the reasons the film works. You'll remember the shock and the gore and the schlock. Those are the things that you'll remember after seeing these films. But your enjoyment whilst watching the film, I think, does come from the fact that it is a good story and a well structured story. So there you go, Braindead, aka Dead Alive. I'll give it a 4 out of 5 on this one, and I think I'm going to pursue with the Jackson reviews for the moment. This probably will become a marathon session, despite what I'm saying. I do have a pathological desire to catalogue everything and see everything. There you go. So there you go, folks. This is me, Big Buddha, signing off. Let's see if I can get this right this time. And until next time, I'll see you all out there in YouTube land.